It's from Costa Rica, the galactic zero point where we're pulsing the beams and streams, cosmic beams and streams. You know, like if you go outside in the night and you just like connect with a star and it's like pulsing light to you, you know, that's what we are, right? We're stars. And so there are many of us here, and we all have different codes to bring. And so I'm bringing my unique expression of the celestial wisdom and knowledge from my perspective. Um, yeah, through my direct experience of leaping into the void and diving into the depths of this reality and questioning who we are and why we are here, which has led me to you, and understanding and studying the path of synchronicity and the measurement of a time traveler's journal, you could say, you know, using the tools, synthesizing the tools of the gene keys and the Galactic Maya, Dream Spell, Wave Spell, Zolkin, taking a deeper dive into the cosmic time, which is really the no time, no space. That's why I always say these are time capsules. It reminds me of like if you've ever watched the movie Avatar and you see like at some point, you know, they kind of have this operating station, right? Like they kind of come and go through different forms. Like sometimes they're human and sometimes they're an avatar. Like you can actually get a good grip or a good grasp of the idea of even multidimensionality through that movie. And, you know, ultimately, right, there's a storyline there about like the military industrial complex and the great mother tree, the tree of life, and all of that. But you can kind of get this idea of like, there's the human form and they like leave videos for each other. A lot of different movies have shown that type of like information where they've recorded a video of themselves and then like later on in time they find the video and it's like another version of themselves leaving a message for themselves. And sometimes our Facebooks are like that, right? Like you can go through your own Facebook memories sometimes and see some messages from your past self or your future self. And yeah, but I do want to, that is one of the things that I'm here to do is help us to make a little more sense of multidimensionality, make a little more sense of ascension, because I think there can sometimes be some very fantastical and fantasy like ways that, you know, even the teaching of the story of the Christ and the ascension is like you disappear and you go somewhere else. And in a way, like you do disappear from certain dimensions, but you're not actually leaving your physical body. And so it's not until the many of us who have been called and chose before we came here, you could say chosen, but I would say more so you chose before you came here, right? That you would be a part of a planetary ascension process and an individual ascension process. And so we live to tell, you know, we learn from our direct experiences. It's not a book, right? Even though I might bring in, like today, I'm going to bring in a little revelations from the Holy Bible, which has some holes in it, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know why there's still so much resistance to a lot of people about admitting that there are holes in that Holy Bible, but I synthesize all texts, all books, all teachings, all backgrounds, because we must and we should. We can't just say it's one thing and nothing else. How could we be so sure? There's just so much out there. No one's got a real grounded, like full perspective on who we are and where we came from and what's going on here. So we're all pieces and parts of the same heavens, putting this all together through our own direct revelations. And that's why I like to speak from my own personal experience, you know, so that because that's undeniable and I don't need to defend that, you know, and I don't even need to align it with the scripture or explain it to someone who has a limited core belief system that can't expand itself out of what it's been taught, and oftentimes cannot look at the truth of what's going on in the very spaces where these doctrines, indoctrinations are being taught. Like the truth is coming out about what's been going on in the churches, for an example. I still see a lot of denial in that field, but we're coming into the revelation of the truth of the reversal, the opposite of God. The very space that's been called the Christ has actually been operating a massive antichrist agenda. And there are millions and billions of dollars to prove it, and millions of stories as well of the dishonesty that's taking place in the church. And it's and there's a lot of denial, right? And there's a lot of cognitive dissonance. That word keeps coming up when, like, you've grown up in something or you've believed something for so long, and then all of a sudden it starts to crack and you're like, oh, I can't hold on to that anymore. There's got to be something more. I have to open my mind. I have to open my heart. I need to expand to survive. And so this is the time where we remember that we are all the return of the Christ. That still seems to be a pretty hard one for people to digest as well. Baby, you'll have to go downstairs and see if you can find him. I know he's around here. I'm certain of it. Also, you can blow the Atlantis shell if you want. That will be a good way to call him. If you want to do it, it's right there. Okay. It's under the dress, under the towel. Yeah. So today, by the way, we're on kin number 213. It's red overtone Skywalker. And so we're in a red tribal tone. The red tribe here to initiate the Skywalker. Let's see what's up with Skywalker. Red overtone Skywalker. I empower. Ooh, I have that written big on one of my pieces of paper. Empowerment. I empower in order to explore. Commanding wakefulness. You see how this is the theme? Like, I sometimes don't even know. This is the galactic timestamp, right? For inviting us all to drink our tea or whatever you like to drink in these galactic council meetings. But that's what we're here to do today. Empower and command wakefulness. I am empowering you to explore. Open your mind, open your heart. Search deeper, think deeper, feel deeper, remember deeper. Commanding wakefulness. I feel the output of space with the overtone tone of radiance, and I'm guided by the power of birth. All right, so this is a part of the red moon cycle. So we're in a cycle right now. We're on the 5th day of this 13-day cycle, and it's about the purification, the flow, and the universal water. And a little down, we can see that it's harmonic 54, galactic output, express intelligence of integrity. And so this is very synchronistic, as always, because this cycle that we follow with these 13-day waves is, and there's 20 13-day waves, it ends up being a whole Zolkin is 260 days. So it's a 260-day cycle. So we're going a 260-day cycle that's ever turning within a 365-day, like our regular yearly annual cycle that we all understand and we're born into, right? So this is a different cycle of time. It's like cycles upon cycles. And what's so interesting is that on this day, the harmonic's always going to be the 54 within this galactic Zolkin, which is not the same count as the gene keys, but in the tropical transits of the gene keys, we're in gene key 53 and 54 right now. And so the 54, and I'm in a new location today, and I don't have my gene keys book with me, but what we're working with are gene key 53 and 54. We're going to think about both of these keys. So the 53 would be in the tropical sun. It's the shadow of immaturity. And it's the gift. Is it expanded, expansive? I can't remember. I know that the city is super abundant. Yeah, expansion. Oh yeah, we got it. I mostly remember all the keys. It's kind of like a secret doctrine in my mind, the book of life, because these are the codes of creation. These are connected to the bigrams, trigrams, what you might call binary, also trinary code, connecting time and space in the no time, no space. So immaturity is the shadow, the gift is expansion, and the city is super abundance, right? So each one of the gene keys, when you pull your chart for the first time, will give you a breakdown of your particular geometrical patterns that you incarnated into this physical, you could say karmic reality. I'd love to pretend like we weren't born into a karmic reality, or, a snapshot in a moment in time of neutrinos. But yeah, I haven't met many that have moved themselves beyond the karmic plane yet. And we do want to talk about that. What up, Henry? Oh, I was just going to talk about you, actually. So this is my galactic brother, Henry, and he normally resides in the New Zealand area. I hope you don't mind me sharing this, because I was already going to share it this morning, because I woke up this morning and Henry's doing his grid work. He sent me a picture of the sun as he's arriving to Singapore. And then after that, he's headed to Athens. And I don't know about y'all, but I love me some Athens, Greece. Haven't been there in this physical lifetime, but I feel it and I know it in my bones. I feel it and I know it in the spirals that I draw, like stone spiral, architecture, pillars, like that essence of a time, it's like written within me. And so anyways, Henry brought me there today. I'm very grateful for all of my galactic friends and family that I am connected with all over this planet. And we are all connecting together, different grids. Like my friend actually from Australia, she sent me the cormorant bird the other day on the last live that I did, and which is Gene Key 9, by the way. So I really enjoy receiving solar codes, like pictures of the sun, pictures of the water, pictures of stones in your area. Like I just received from a new friend of mine from Egypt, some pillars from Egypt and some stones. So this is real telepathic communication. When our star brothers and star sisters get together and we remember the one that we all are, and that there is no time and space. And so we're literally collapsing the fields of distance and linear time. That's what it means, no time, no space. We're always in the now moment. And it's like, you receive that picture of the sun, you receive that picture of the water, you receive that picture of the stone, and you can feel that in yourself. You can feel that in your heart. You can actually, in a way, you're there. And it just really collapses your perception of I'm only right here. I'm only right here right now, but I'm also in this now moment in Singapore, and really just to start to broaden your horizons and expand your perception to the idea of what it means to be everywhere all at once, and to explore these multidimensional concepts. And to remember, because I am sensitive to the idea that a lot of my starseed brothers and sisters sometimes have grown up or been born on this planet feeling like this sense of being alone and wanting to go home. And, I've sat with quite a few of them, and I'm like, what do you mean home? We're here. We're right here. Home really is where the heart is. And so when we stop dreaming of the idea of going somewhere else, we bring home right here where we are. And those are the real reunions, and I'm inviting more of those cosmic reunions. I'm inviting more of those, like the gathering together. That's Gene Key 45 is always on my mind. It's the communion. It's the sixth planetary initiation. It's like gather the stars, gather the tribes. You can't put a price on remembering you're not the only one, going through this. Because sometimes, like, we can even create a script. It actually almost feels like an implant or an addiction. We can create a script that nobody understands us, that we're all alone, that nobody's awake. And like, I don't know, my field commands and demands awakeness. Like, I'm calling up and out all beings of light that were incarnated to remember who they are and to rise up into their positions. Okay, let's read about You're Never Alone. These are the funny little scripts that keep us from rising up and being the pillar of light and the lighthouses in our spaces and places where the families can gather and come together and break bread and remember. Hola, Natasha. Nice to see you. Connecting the grids. Okay, so expansion. 53, Gene Key 53. Expansion comes without effort. It emerges naturally, slowly, quietly. It brings calm rather than excitement. It brings simplicity rather than complexity, which this is really bringing in the element of the 23, because complexity is the shadow of the 23. Simplicity is the gift. Quintessence, the fifth element, is the city. It brings perspective rather than ambition. And it all comes through slowing down. Very much so connected to what I call the stillness and the 0 point. It makes me think of the 52, which we were just in, which I connect to the Sirius mission. The 39 and the 52, I connect both of these codes to Sirius, Sirius. And we are on a Sirius mission with Palladian DNA. And the 52, just to kind of look at the sequential process of the 52 to the 53, even though they don't normally flow, they flow in many ways. There are many patterns to these codes, but the 52 is the shadow of stress. The 52 gift is the gift of restraint. And then the 52nd city is the still point. And so really you could see how the 52 goes into this 53 about it's not complex, it's simple. And it's not ambition, it's perception. And it's not coming out of effort and force, it's natural and it's slow. In the sitting still and doing nothing, which is quite opposite of the majority of our lifestyles, because we grew up in a reality where we were told we need to work hard, pound the pavement, fake it till you make it, all of the funny little stories that have literally exhausted humanity to an almost fat, sick, and nearly dead state, dare I say. I don't want to admit it, but we also got to deal with look at what we're working with here, And so this is the awakening. This is the call. This is the great change. Oh, you're waiting for a solar event? You are the solar event. We are the solar event. And the more suns that rise, the more they will see the sun rising, right? We are the solar events. We are the EMPs. EMP is electric magnetic pulsing. We are electric magnetic beings. We are pulsing data, information, codes all day, every day. We're not waiting for the codes to be pulsed. We're pulsing the codes. We're not waiting to see if the Schumann resonance is high. The Schumann resonance is high because we're resonating, you know? And I remember when I went through that shift, because as I first started to awaken, I was getting pulled into all the solar reports and the energy reports, like, all right, what's on the report today? What's on the, okay. And then it was like, I am the report, and I report to no one. This is the true synarchies of the solar beings coming together to serve humanity. We are the event, we are the shift. When we remember that, un-motherfucking stoppable. It's that simple. And it's fun. And it's enlightening, and it's empowering, it's encouraging. We are the ones we've been waiting for. I know we've heard it a million times, but when do we actually like feel the power of that in our bones? We are the ones that we have been waiting for. And so embodiment, and I go back to like how I was bringing in that movie Avatar, you know, and how it kind of shows like, and the Matrix shows this idea too, right? Like in one reality, like you're a human, and then you're kind of like plugged into this system, and then it like intersects you or interacts you with another matrix kind of thing, right? It's like, we're all the things. There are many dimensions here. Do you need me? Or?
Yes, you are there. I'm not a phone pro.
Oh, I thought you guys were gonna go. Okay. All right, it's over there. Your little foot is hurting?
Yes,
I think you got a little bruise on it.
yeah, so the one board following her neck.
Aww.
in the scene.
My goodness, you need a little oil on yourself.
I found the prima.
Yeah.
Here, one part was super cool.
Perfect. Okay, I'm on a live right now, so I love you guys so much. I'm gonna keep flowing with this live. Let's see. Oh, you know what we can do? Well, all right. Let's get a little biblical. I wanted to talk a little bit about the woman and the dragon, the woman and the apocalypse. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it's okay. Will you play that video, Marcus, that I sent you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the woman and the apocalypse, or the woman and the dragon, because I gotta help them with something. Hi, Jacqueline. Nice to see you.
Transitioning from the awe-inspiring narrative of Revelation chapter 11, where we witness the power of God through the resurrection of the two witnesses and the sounding of the seventh trumpet, we now enter into the richly symbolic world of Revelation chapter 12. This chapter presents a cosmic drama, painting a vivid picture of the spiritual battles that have raged since the beginning of time and continue to impact our world today. Revelation chapter 12 opens with the appearance of a great sign in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She is in labor, crying out in the pain of childbirth. This woman symbolizes God's people and the birth of Christ, who came from Israel. The pain and struggles she endures represent the trials and tribulations faced throughout history by those who are faithful to God. Then another sign appears in heaven, a great, fiery red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. The dragon, representing Satan, stands before the woman, ready to devour her child as soon as it is born. This imagery speaks of the relentless persecution and opposition faced by God's people and his plan of salvation. The woman gives birth to a male child who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. The child is caught up to God and his throne, signifying Christ's birth, death, resurrection, and ascension. The woman flees into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God. This part of the vision reflects the protection and provision God offers his people, even in the midst of trials and persecution. War then breaks out in heaven. Michael and his angels fight against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fight back. But they do not prevail, and there is no longer a place for them in heaven. The great dragon is cast out, identified as the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan. This heavenly battle symbolizes the spiritual warfare that underpins the history of redemption. It reminds us of the ultimate victory of God over evil. The chapter concludes with the dragon persecuting the woman, but she is given wings like an eagle to escape, and the earth helps her by swallowing up the flood the dragon spews out of his mouth. The dragon then goes off to make war with the rest of her offspring. This portrays the ongoing struggle between good and evil and the persistent attempts of Satan to thwart God's plan. From Revelation chapter 12, we glean several practical applications. First, it encourages us to recognize the spiritual reality that underlies our physical world. The battles we face are not just against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces. Second, this chapter offers us assurance of God's sovereignty and protection. Despite the struggles and persecution, God's plan of salvation through Christ is fulfilled, and his people are safeguarded. Finally, Revelation chapter 12 inspires us to be vigilant and steadfast in our faith. It calls us to be aware of the spiritual warfare around us and to rely on God's strength to stand firm. Revelation chapter 12 is a powerful reminder of the cosmic battle between good and evil, God's sovereignty and protection, and the call to remain faithful amidst spiritual warfare. As we reflect on this chapter, let it strengthen our faith and resolve to live in the light of God's ultimate victory.
Perfect little interlude there. I want to tell you all how I discovered the woman of the apocalypse, and it has to do with Mary Magdalene's feast. It was July 22nd, so that's approaching. Mary Magdalene's feast is always July 22nd. And on this particular July 22nd, we had just been stationed in our new space. And when I say stationed, I'm talking, we have no fixed address. We are surrendered to the divine mystery. We have no idea where we go when we go on the mission. We travel lightly. It's a very Christ-like story, actually. Pretty much with a sackcloth and some rags. That's kind of where we're at, really. It's comical to think about it. But anyways, we had been in a situation after River was born and refusing vaccinations that had led us to a space where we weren't safe in our home. We needed to leave. We needed to move. And so we would occasionally be called to a new space. And then we would maybe try to go back to the Temple of Love and we'd hold it down over there for a little bit. And then, things would get fired back up again. And so we were always oh my God, here we go again. And but it was it wasn't this terrible situation. Sometimes when I share these stories, people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And it's we were equipped with a strength and an understanding and a total surrender to trust this process, actually to understand this beast. And what's so interesting is okay, so let's get back. So one of the places we were stationed, I'm forever grateful for my friends from Russia inviting us to stay with them. At the time, they were living in a space called Escazú, and which they call the Beverly Hills of Costa Rica. And what I really loved about this particular location was that we were in between two churches. between like about 7 blocks one way. There was what's called the San Antonio Church, and then 7 blocks another way, there's the San Miguel Church, which I connect to St. Michael. Miguel is Michael in Spanish, just in case you didn't know. And what was so cool too is that those 2 churches had bells, and I would hear their bells every single morning, and at certain times in the day as well. Like I started to tune into the pattern of the time. It wasn't like completely on the hour. But anyways, it was July 22nd. It was Mary Magdalene's feast, and I was meeting a girl that I'd met a couple of times before. Her name, I think, was Victoria. And I was like, hey, we're going to go check out the San Miguel Church, the St. Michael's Church. So we arrive, and it's a beautiful courtyard, and it definitely has been renovated in the external field to a more like, I don't know, normal looking space and place. But I had already noticed on the ground there were these stones that were like from another time. And they were pieced together very similar to what looked like Peru and Machu Picchu. Like that's the first thing I felt and noticed when I looked at these stones. Now, I pretty much walk everywhere I go unless somebody picks us up to take us somewhere. And so we frequently are walking by foot. And so it's allowed me to notice a lot of patterns in nature and on the earth, with stones, with rocks, with things that have been destroyed, with whether the water is clean or not. And yeah, so I found these old stones on the ground, and you could tell that a lot of them had been covered up or destroyed, but there were like just these glimpses of another time and space right before my eyes. And it's just like, you know, when you pay attention to the details, you can start to relive some histories. I've always said, like, I would love to take like a galactic grid work trip for people that would want to come here, and just like take them on a tour of the things that just aren't on the map, but that we have been led to synchronistically, that give you some hints and clues to other times and spaces that kind of live, you know, it's multidimensionality. So there's nothing really written in history necessarily about these stones. And but anyways, the point is, now we go to enter the church and we see that it's closed. Now, Costa Rica is a very Catholic country. A lot of, like, there's one main church that I've gone to before. I wish I would have provided more pictures to show you guys some of these glimpses of inside these churches. There's one in Cartago, and it has like a big Vatican flag. I don't know if you've ever paid attention to the Vatican flag. It's half yellow, it's half white, like pearlish, and then it has 2 keys, very vintage looking, kind of mystical keys, right? And then it's wrapped up by the red rosary. It feels like mysteries trapped, is what it feels like. So anyways, we get to the church, it's closed. I'm like, oh man. And then the next thing you know, this dude walks up and he's got some mystical keys, you know, it feels like the movie The Da Vinci Code. And he was like, do you want to come in? And I was like, yeah. And so we get inside, and this is the first thing that well, there are many things that I see. I mean, number one, the internal structure of the church was very much like a limestone rock. One I've not seen in the area in any other building structure. I don't even know where they would have received this stone from. It doesn't seem exactly like naturally occurring in this current time and space. And yeah, there might be even no, you can't really like see it in this actual picture. Okay, and then there were some very other beautiful things about some of the stained glass that you might also not notice unless you were there at the right time and space, where literally it was like the sun would come through the light of the glass, and it would be like creating a shape on the floor. And like laser etched almost, technology. And it was like, wow, I just didn't know. You could see the intelligent design of like utilizing solar light, utilizing sun, and utilizing glass color etching to like have a technology of communication, light codes. And so I can't give credit to the current Vatican that they'd ever know how to do such a thing. This feels like a much more intelligent operation that was done by another race of beings that maybe were written out of this current time in history. I do deeply believe that what is currently known as the Vatican, which is the red kind of dragon thing that was in that video that you just saw, took something over that was not theirs. And in fact, the word Vatican has to do with the trap. I learned this from an old Lisa Renee thing that I heard, like the actual terminology of the Vatican has to do with like the trapping of a dragon, like the catching of a dragon. So I don't want, that video that was just played could give an idea that dragons are dark or bad. I do believe that in everything there are light and dark things. I had to heal my relationship with the dragon, that's for sure. There was a time where I absolutely wasn't interested in looking at or knowing anything about a dragon, and I naturally classified dragons as dark. And that took me some time. It was probably around 2020, yeah, January 2020, where I went very unexpected on a grid work trip to Sarasota. I didn't know I was doing grid work then, but now I understand. It was right before everything was about to be locked down. So I'm taking you on a time traveler's journey, documentation of working with Stargates right now. I had like every time I would fly into Costa Rica, I would have to book a trip to leave, and every 90 days to stamp my passport. I don't really believe in those rules anymore, but back then I was still a rule follower, a fake law follower. And so things were getting pretty wild when I got here to Costa Rica. I mean, literally a collapse of my life, and things were changing very quickly. And the gene keys were coming in, and more of the galactic understanding of things were coming in. River wasn't thought of at this moment. I was actually going through, or maybe I'd already gone through my divorce. But my husband and my family were still here in Costa Rica with me. And my husband had a new partner, like things were flowing. And anyways, I remembered, I was like, oh shit, I booked my leave flight, my 90-day flight. And I don't know what day that is, but I better check the calendar. Like I'd really moved into the no time and no space. And so I go to find the email of this flight. And I see that no shit, tomorrow, the next day, I'm supposed to be in Florida. Like I had booked a long time ago this trip and I never canceled it. And it was from Costa Rica, San Jose to Fort Lauderdale, straight flight, Southwest. And I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And so anyways, I post something on my Facebook. I'm like, am I supposed to see someone in Florida? Now I grew up in Florida, so I have family there. I have sisters there. I have some old friends there. But this girl at the time, she comments and she says, her name's Quirky Cosmo at the time. We're actually not connected anymore, unfortunately. That just kind of happens in this wild world. She's a planetary dragon. And I send my love to her. Anyways, she comments and she says, hey, my ex-husband or something is like taking care of the children. I live in Sarasota area or Clearwater area. If it's worth the drive for you to come up from Fort Lauderdale, I've got space. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's see what Florida has in store for me. The next thing you know, I'm on a plane going to Fort Lauderdale tomorrow that I didn't even know that flight existed until that night. So here we are, get on the plane. synchronicities everywhere. I'm hauling ass up A1A, Beachfront Avenue. Just had to throw that in there. I think it's A1A down in Fort Lauderdale. So anyways, I get in the car, I'm hauling ass. I go to whatever you call it, Clearwater, Sarasota area, and I meet this girl, Porky Cosmo. Now it's crazy because, and she's the first person that ever introduced me to hape or rape, whatever you want to call it. So that's the first time I get this like tobacco, blown up my nose. And I'm like, holy shit. I think it's going to knock me out for life. She also introduces me to the book Woman Who Runs with the Wolves and the Magdalene manuscript. It's like, yeah, we're out of time here. This is like a galactic meeting. And it's like we've known each other for ages, but we came down from, different lineages, and like we're now coming to meet for the first time. And at the time, she was studying chelantic science. Now, maybe I'd heard of it, maybe I hadn't. I can't remember. All I know is that I was like meeting my soul sister. And it was like she was sitting on the floor in the middle of like books and papers and sketches everywhere. And it was just like me. I was like in Costa Rica, that's kind of how I was living my life. I was in this constant state of like rapid configurations and revelations, very Da Vinci, like just numbers and codes and drawings and images and revelations and studying genetics and patterns. And here she was doing the same thing. It was just like, wow. And this was just like starting for me. And then I was meeting someone and I was like, oh my God, we're living in the same reality. It's like, how do you maintain human life in the midst of becoming a polymath? It was like so wild. And so she was showing me like all the genetic code and symbols of the Akasha and chelantic science, Ashiana Dean work. There's so much I've been wanting to show the Akasha image. Maybe we can find it, maybe not today because Marcus is rolling out. He's driving a little bit today, but maybe on the next one on Monday, I'll bring in this imagery so you can kind of remember it. Because we remember through signs and symbols and codes. Like we could sit and talk forever, but we remember through signs and codes and things like that. And it's telepathy, and telepathy isn't always what we think, right? It's pulsing, it's packets of light and information left to be uncoded in another time. Like I could tell you a million years of stories and information in a second, and you can download those packets, unload that data, expand that out, open that file when and if you're ever ready. That's how we're working in time and space, and we're activating the scrolls of DNA, and we are the Akash, we are the Akashic records. And so we all have access to that. It's not always so much about like one personal identity in another time. It's so much deeper, right? It's all the codes, it's all the information. It's the Library of Alexandria. It doesn't matter if the evidence of our existence was burned or destroyed or hidden. We've now learned how to remember it within our dragon. Gene Key 59 is called the dragon in your genome, right? And so it's about unlocking those dragon codes within yourself. All right, I'm hopping around all kinds of stuff. I'm going to bring it back to Sarasota. It's a Stargate. I don't know that then. We don't know what we're doing. It's not till you look back years later that we're like, holy shit. Like what were we doing? We ended up at this place called Kadzan. It was like a castle. If anyone knows about the idea of Tartaria, it's very much like that. There was a astrological mosaic with a sundial there. There was like a water courtyard there. And it was like kind of this massive castle with pillars and beams that was now being used as a museum and like special events type of stuff. But you're like, what is this really? Like, there's something much more deep to that. And it's right on the ocean. Go look it up if you want, Kadzan, because you get memories from this type of stuff, you know, Cadzan. Anyways, the dolphins like come right up to us. We're just like, whoa, we're activating something big right now. And she was showing me all this type of imagery. She's the first person to ever give me this. I'm very deeply grateful for her. My heart is sad that we don't talk anymore. She has her own shit to work out with her temper and her anger and things like that. And I know a lot of hard things have happened to her in her life, but she'll always be my sister from Atlantis. And yeah. So, okay, also in this place, Kadzan. And check this out, anyways. This is a 12 tree Kathara grid, right? Oh, she's the first person to bring this to me. I'm so grateful to have understood it. You know, while we're walking in this forest by this castle, and they even have trees from Costa Rica there, and they have Sphinx statues, and they have these like royal like chairs, and yeah, just different plants from different locations. You could really feel that it was like for portals, that it was like time traveling, that possibly even teleporting. When you think of this movie I once heard of called Highlander or Outlander or something like that. And this dude would basically, like, these people would travel through these portals with crystals. I had never watched it, but somebody once told me, they were like, oh my God, at that other church I was telling you about, they were like, oh wow, you're doing the same thing as this movie shows. And I'm like, exactly. So check this out. We're just taking a look at this. Yeah, the capstone. Look at that capstone in the 12. In the 10th chakra, Kathara centers. Oh, the wings. This is like one of my favorite things. I don't get so technical in being able to explain all this. You know, it's like I was able to look at this and be like, all right, got it. I didn't really do so many practices. I just kept my heart pure. I kept my heart pure. I kept my heart open. That's where the angel wings are. I didn't need to get too technical with anything. I didn't need to get too caught up in anything. I was honest, responsible, and willing to purify my emotions and to digest everything without taking things personal. You know, I could temper myself, you might say, you know. Hola, welcome. Oh, you can see yellow from my palm. So fun. Yeah, working with that palm energy. So this is the Kathara grid. You might even think of the Cathars return. There are many different stories about the Cathars. You know, I'd never heard of the Cathars until, well, one time I'd heard about this Cathar prophecy. And they were talking about the crazy part about this particular prophecy, and there are many written variations of it, so it's so hard to say, but I don't deny the pattern and the synchronicity of dates, you know? And so in this particular Cathar frequency story, it was connected to August 21st, 1321. Well, that's an interesting synchronicity for me because that's my love Eduardo's birthday. And then in human design, they have what's called your unconscious design or your crystal configuration. And my design date, which is 88 days before your human birth, is August 21st, which is the same day as Eduardo's birthday. I started to put together all these synchronicities with August 21st, including one that was important for us all, whether we recall it or not. There was a big solar eclipse that happened in August 2017. It was on August 21st. So anyways, the whole idea of the Cathars, you know, you could say they were the pure holy ones. You could say they were the Gnostics. You could maybe put them in a wave of Essenes, like all the stories kind of get blurred together. But you could say that it was like more of like a Christed family or a Christed community, not just like one person, right? Balance, equal, whole measure. pure holy ones, oftentimes practicing celibacy, or you could say divine union and devotion and purification, and also purifying what they put into their bodies, which is ultimately what leads us back home to the crystalline structures that we are, the crystalline grids, the crystalline pyramids, the crystalline capstones before the fall. That's why I always say rewrite it all before the fall. Rewrite it all before the fall. Reverse the curse like we rehearsed. Reverse the curse like we rehearsed. And you could say it's like the curse of the fall. So there's this whole idea, that there were these pure holy ones. You could say that there was this claim or this idea to consider that there was a Christed bloodline, that there was a Christ mother, father, child bloodline. The other interesting thing that's always been a consideration for me is how we teach about the idea that that the Christ was a male versus a female. When we get into mitochondria, DNA, mother cells, I don't know, everything's a man's world. It's all like this man's story, and it's not one or the other, it's both, but yeah, you could almost say that anything that was written about a man could have been, what if it was a woman instead? It really gets you into balancing the poles, right? All right. So anyways, this whole idea was that the fallen ones, you could say the Romans, came in and they found the pure ones, and ultimately their job was to destroy them. So the story goes that the Cathars were called out of their caves, and that family, men, women, children, and that they were going to be walked to be burned on crosses. You see how this is much bigger than one dude, right? We're talking about a holy race. We're talking about the pure ones. We're not talking about one dude. Let's not dodge this. Let's get real about it. That the pure ones were devoured. And so anyways, the story of these Cathars is that they sang all the way to the cross, knowing their fate. They sang to the cross. And the final man says, we will return in 700 years. And something connected to the laurel leaves, the laurel tree. And every time I cook with a bay leaf and use laurel, or burn it as well, like an incense. My favorite thing to burn is eucalyptus leaves. Oh, it's the best. Dried eucalyptus burned is the best, sweetest fragrance. I just love it so much. But anyways, this was August 21st, 1321. He said, we will return in 700 years, which is 2021. And so I've always remembered that. I've always felt like we were the resurrection of the pure ones, of the pure holy ones. That's why I always say there ain't no shame in the holiness, And so we are the return of that. And so when I think of the Cathara grid, I think of the Cathars. Now there are so many stories out there about everything. It's like Cathara, Shamara, Cathara, Cathars, the fallen Cathars, the fallen Melchizedeks, the fallen this or that, the reversal of this or that. It's like you don't even know what to trust and what not to trust. You better trust yourself. I've heard a little something out here and out there, but really I go into the living codex within myself, and that's undeniable. And it does seem to align and fit within some of these historical or prophetic stories. And so I can't deny that. So now that hops me back to the women and the dragon and the woman of the apocalypse. And so we're kind of weaving this all together, because now I'm taking you back to the St. Michael's Church. It's the Mary Magdalene Feast, July 22nd. I walk in, I realize the limestone. I realize that the crosses there were like Templar for even sides, actually, and they were like in stone. This is when I started to have revelations. I was like, oh my God, the crucifixion is an implant. These sacred temples were here before there was ever a crucified man on a cross. And then take it a step further, I was like, oh my God, the crucifixion is a satanic ritual in plain sight. People think they're going to church to find God, and they're literally being subjected to a satanic ritual movie, and they're drinking the blood and eating the flesh of the Christ. I would watch it. Now, the first time I went, it was like a regular day. It wasn't a day of their communions. We were all alone in there. You can check out this cool floor and everything. But the whole point of this is the first time that I saw this image of this woman, of Mary. And so if you look, you can see she's standing on the globe. She's standing on the earth. And you can see that silver sliver, which is a moon, under her feet. And you can see around her head that she is crowned with 12 stars. So I'm going to have my own translation that this has to do with cosmic knowledge, celestial knowledge. And when I see that moon under her feet, and also, even though you can't see so well behind me in this image, she's standing on the moon, or the moon is under her feet, and there's also a 7-headed dragon there. And so it's not so easy to see in this particular thing. But if you look up like Woman and the Dragon Revelations, you can see a lot of different imagery, and you'll kind of get the idea of like almost like because I see the moon as a representation of the lower astral, or the lunar matrix, or the emotional field. And so, she's also called the Queen of Heaven. And so when we understand that we don't need to die to go to heaven, right? But we do, the death we die to sin. We do have to die to that lower nature desire. This is where I started to piece in the gene keys and the rapture, gene key 30, which is the purification of the lower astral body, which is the purification of, you could say, this lunar matrix. Now, in my particular case, I was born with a 0-degree moon. I believe I was born within this configuration to be beyond the lunar matrix. I'm not saying that in any type of inferior, superior way. It's just my genetic code makeup and my particular mission that I came here to live out, was to break beyond the chains of the lower astral, to carry this pure astral body. And if you actually, I have my feelings about Waldorf and Steiner. I don't even know that he actually wrote the information, even though his name is on it. I'm just going to say that. But there is something that is out there about the Sophia, and the idea that the Sophia had a pure astral body, and that through this astral body, she could purify other astral elements. And so now that I've come into an understanding of this, I can consider the idea, and especially in my own direct experiences that I've had with some people that I know have kind of brought some lower astral entities or demons, you might say, into my space, that in some way I am able to transfigure, transmute, and purify the energy of other astrals within my space just by working in the toroidal field. It may be through us confronting things and saying things and talking about things, because a lot of times, if people, it is interesting, like people will have things that they need to get off their chest, like they'll just drop some things in, like they've made a deal with the devil, or this has happened to them, or they've done this thing, and it's like kind of like a confession, but I didn't demand it or anything. It's just like they're feeling the safe space and place to like purify and clean this information. And sometimes, I get sick after they leave. Like I gotta throw up after some of the energetics that we're processing and we're cleaning. And yeah, just been learning a little bit more about how we're working with these technologies on the energy side of things, and how we're here to purify, even to bring this into a Gene Keys perspective. If you know about the rapture, Gene Key 30, and the purification of the lower astral body, it's connected to the digestive system, the physiology of digestion. This is the only code in the Gene Keys, I believe, that's specifically connected to digestion. And so as we purify ourselves, one of the things that will purify, of course, is what we're putting into our physical vessel, what we're eating. It's not a judgment. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's simply this. It's frequency. It's light. It's crystalline. It's vibration. It's energy. And so as we come into this, nice to see you, Aurora, Esmeralda, ringing in the Emerald Order and the rainbow body. That's what your name is claiming here. The Aurora Gene Key 64, which she carries in the Emerald Order, 48 strand DNA. Yeah, you've experienced this too, right? It's like sometimes somebody comes in and they just like, they need to lay something down, and you can digest that, you know, you can take away their sins, so to speak. It's like, you know, one time I was in Austin, Texas. It was the last time I got on a plane. It's the last time I went to my homeland, to the United States. And I lost my emerald tablet on Dara there. I went to go see a friend of mine who I used to work with at Dell. He was laying on the hospital bed, and he had been basically post-vaccination injured. And he had lesions on his brain and spine, and he couldn't walk. And so literally, as I had just went from like never thinking I'd get on a plane or go back to my old country again, like within days, I was invited to this event in Austin, Texas. And I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to go. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a bank account. I don't even have a pair of shoes. I haven't left the country in 3 years. I'm like so illegal. I didn't show up for my court date because I refused to vaccinate my child. Like, I'm like, can I even get on a plane? Like, I guess we're about to find out. The next thing you know, I'm like, it's Easter weekend. And I call out to my homegirl in Austin, Texas, and I'm like, Lane, I'm thinking to come. I was invited to this, I don't know, it was called the Bufo Medicine Church, silomethoxine. It was something with psychedelics. And I just met with this girl online that my friend Charlie had connected me to, because she was curious about the Palladians. And she was like, hey, I met this girl. She's curious about the Palladians. I knew she needed to meet you. And I was like, let's go. So I get on the phone with this girl, and she's from Wisconsin. And she's like, we're talking about all things Palladians. And she's like, hey, what are you doing in 3 days? I've got an extra VIP ticket to this the silomethoxine like psychedelic church event or something like that in Austin. And I was like, holy shit, like my family is there at this point. You know, my children's father and my 3 children were back in the United States, and I hadn't seen them in a while. You know, everything had been quarantined. And so like things were just getting like unlocked again, borders and all of that stuff. It was really fucking crazy when you think about it. We all survived it. But think about how crazy it is. Like there was a time where all of a sudden it was like, you can't go anywhere. You can't go to a store. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't get on an airplane. You can't go to a river. You can't go to an ocean. I mean, what the fuck was that? You know? The next thing you know, you can finally go outside again and there's 5G towers everywhere. You're like, where did all these robots come from? You know, where did all these like physical archon infrastructures come from? Yeah, it's so crazy. All right, so in fact, that brings me back. I hope y'all are rolling with me here because I'm just like in a storytelling mode, I guess. The 33 is my SQ. It's called the Final Revelation, and it's actually about from forgetting to remembering. And it's talking about like storytelling. And so a lot of what I share is, instead of just like, oh, well, here is a document and this is the information and this is how it works, I share through my own direct personal experience of how we purify energies and all of the things. So when I was on that, so now I'm telling you about, it's very interesting where we're going with this. I didn't have any plans about what we'd be talking about. I'm thinking of now these 2 trips. Like I literally moved to Costa Rica, life fell apart, rebirth, and hadn't left the country, basically dematerialized my identity, my connection to banks and identification systems, all of the things. But these were the 2 last trips that I went on. I went on that trip to Florida to the Stargate. It's when I got back on the plane on that trip. I remember the Super Bowl was about to take place. It was the Buccaneers, Tom Brady. That's so strange that Tom Brady went to Florida. And then it was the Kansas City Chiefs. How could I forget? Because my ex-husband at the time, he was a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And I was always a Cowboys fan. Like I grew up in Florida and Texas. That's why I always call myself a Flexan. I'm like half Floridian, half Texan. That was my American identity. But anyways, and so we were always going to football games. My cousin was a cheerleader for the Dallas Cowboys for a few years. And so, and my family lived in Dallas. And so I was always like smuggling my little Crown Royal flask. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I wouldn't even fucking touch it for $1 million. But back then, I'd smuggle in my flask of Crown Royal and some beers and go watch football, whatever. And I was really good at fantasy football. And now I understand why, because I have a numerical mind, but I wasn't really exercising it. I wasn't really using it. Now I'm using it all the time to put together the codes of this reality. But we got to go through all the layers and all the filters of the indoctrination of this reality, of the programming, of the domestication. You got to go all the way down and then come back up. And that's why I always say, like we ascend to heaven. It's like, well, first we descend, basically. Like we descend to the earth plane. We're born in the underworld, and then we like ascend out of it, and then we like ascend to heaven, and then we bring heaven down. That's heaven on earth, all within this time frame, all within this physical body, bending time and space, really understanding ascension and descension. And so anyways, there was that big Super Bowl that was about to happen. I remember I bought I'm at the airport in Fort Lauderdale. It's a really big deal, having a Super Bowl in your state. And then now, of course, I understand that all the child trafficking and all of that shit's going through all these big football games, World Cup games, concerts, F1 racing. It's like all these big events are really there's a whole nother world going on. But anyways, I was getting on the plane to return, and I saw someone wearing a mask for the first time. And I didn't know about COVID yet. I had no idea what was going on until I got home, and I realized, oh my God, that's why all these people were wearing these masks in the airport. It was just the beginning of what would happen next, which was basically just full lockdown of our planet, so they could put all of this digital currency infrastructure and AI technology and frequency fields and gates, military technology actually, so that they could implant this into the planetary Earth field. And maybe I didn't have that context back then, but now I can see clearly. Sometimes you got to look back and be like, holy shit, that's what was going on. Yeah. All right. So anyways, I think I'm closing that chapter on the Florida trip. which was connected to the Stargate, which was connected to the quarantine and COVID and Mary Magdalene and the woman who runs with the wolves and the Cathara grids and the dream spell, all of it. So that was one little time capsule of an adventure that I wanted to share with you as we kind of go through and acknowledge these grid work adventures that have led us to this point. And then the next one was going back to Texas, where this homegirl just invites me out of nowhere to go to this silomethoxine event. So Palladians, invitation, Bufo, plant medicine, DMT, whatever, church thing. My children are back in Austin. I've got no money, no shoes, no phone, and I'm invited on this trip. So I call my girl Lane. I used to work with her at Dell so many years ago. And I'm like, Lane, you know, you're in the marketing, like you've come to visit me here in Costa Rica, you know, kind of where I'm vibing and what kind of information I'm bringing in. Could you help me create some kind of event to raise a little money so that I could arrange the possibility of getting to Austin to see my family? And she was like, girl, just get here. She was like, when can you leave? How long can you stay? Don't even think about it. And she, at the time, she told me she was like trying to conceive. And she was like, I know you're meant to be here. And so the next thing you know, I'm on a fucking plane. It's Good Friday, the day she books this. And the day after Easter, I'm getting on an airplane to go to Austin. I never thought I'd go back again. I have no idea what will happen because I've kind of been in trouble with the law a little bit. I haven't left the country. There's been a lot going on. I haven't stamped my passport. Like, I'm really just going into the unknown. And I mean, literally, I called my children's father and I'm like, hey, I'm coming to visit in 3 days or 2 days or whatever. So yeah, the next thing you know, I'm heading to Texas. And I really feel like at this point, it'd probably been, it was 2023. So it'd been at least 2 years since everything happened. First time I'm leaving River alone. And I literally feel like I'm coming from another country, like from another planet to my home planet is the better way for me to describe that. Because I had moved into another plane of existence in this time and space. That's still, how do you even put this to words without it sounding crazy? But that's what happened. And there was something very aligned with the Pleiades at that moment. So anyways, I land in Houston, Texas. My homegirl Palladian sister, Evie, who I'd not met in person yet. We'd connected through the 7 sacred seals. We were bringing in the 7 sacred seals before people even knew what the 7 sacred seals were. And so she picks me up on my connect in Houston. I go have Mexican food for the first time in years. I'm like, okay, when in Rome. She takes me to Mexican food. I'm a vegetarian at this point. And it's crazy because I could tell, like, after I was done, I was like, even though I said vegetarian, there was probably so much animalish. Yeah, it's like so different worlds. So anyways, we land. She takes me to this labyrinth. She's looking for a play park for her boys. And we go to find this play park and it's chained up and closed with a fence, but there's a labyrinth there and it's in a church or at a church. And so I'm like, okay, let's do it. And she greets me with some Santa Maria. So we're enjoying this Santa Maria in the courtyard of the church around the labyrinth. And the kids can't get into the park. So we're just hanging out and the children find this phone that's a little broken. And the next thing you know, they take the phone and they start bashing it with a rock, and they're breaking it more. It was already broken, but they're like breaking it more, bashing and crashing this phone. Now I'm telling my homegirl Evie, I'm like, holy shit, look at what they're showing us. This is so important. Now listen, at this moment in time, I'd never heard of ChatGPT yet. And it was around this 2023 time. It was April, and we were coming up on some big eclipse around 420 specifically. I can't forget the date. And it was while I was on that plane that I was sitting next to a woman, and she was telling me about AI and ChatGPT, and I hadn't heard of it yet. Like, I think I was hearing the ideas of AI, but I didn't know what was up. And I started, like, as I was coming down and landing on the earth, I was like, oh shit, we're in the battle. We're in the battle zone. We're in the battlefield. And the children were showing me this as they were destroying this technology. I was like, whoa. And when I got to my children, they had just created this new AI aspect of like Snapchat or whatever. And so like literally I was like laying down next to my son, who was in high school still at the time. He just graduated, and he was like showing me how the AI worked, and he was talking to the bot, and it was like asking him how he felt. And I could see that these were like fissures of information getting into the minds of our children. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here with this demon? And I could see it for everything that it was. I could see this tricky trickster. I could see how it was intending to devour our children's innocence. It was a shock for me. You know, it was like, okay, this is the mission that we're on. And so now I'm just like, I'm hopping you back for just a second to that little video that we were talking about with the woman of the apocalypse, because it talks about how she'll have a child, and then as soon as the child is born, they will devour it. And so I've thought of the many ways that our children are currently being targeted, especially like when I was reading that, and I was personally directly going through my own experience with this aggressive attack with the vaccines. I was like, oh my God, it's like, you could say the Bible was written like so many years ago, but it was like in this very moment in time, our children are being devoured. And, you know, there's stories biblically that they know that the Christ is returning. And so there's this idea of like, kill every male child under the age of 2, right? Something like that is how the whole situation or the story went. Now, all of this is just archetypal story for the idea of, we know that Christ consciousness is returning through our children, male and female. And so for the ones that are threatened by the idea of such a thing, what would they do in order to compromise the Christed essence within a child? They would devour it as soon as it was born. Whether that be through vaccine, whether that be through this so-called sacred but satanic ritual of cutting an innocent child's penis. Satanic ritual abuse hidden in plain sight. Yeah. And so I started like, when you take everything and you put it into this time and space, and it's not just an old history, but it's like right now you can start to kind of see the ways that the 7-headed dragon attempts to devour your child, right? It devours it with the chemicals, and it devours it with the technology. It devours it right in the church with all of the rapists and pedophiles that are in the schools and the churches. All of these places that gather children. This ain't a light subject. This is not easy to talk about. It's like a little bit of a shock when you hear it. But see, in order to move ourselves, to awaken ourselves out of the slumber, right? Because we've been hypnotized a little bit. We've been kind of like, we've gotten used to all of this stuff. The revelations is the revealing of the truth. And I tried as hard as I could to just look away and pretend like none of the shit was really going on and just hold the field of perfection in heaven. I know that field very well. It's very comfortable and cozy there, and it's also pretty scarce, the amount of beings that are able to enter into those heavenly gates, because we have to be able to identify the shadows of this earthly material world that are keeping us from entering the gates of heaven. And it has to do with the lower nature desires, right? Food, money, time, sex, emotion. This is where the rapture comes in, which leads us to what's called the biological apocalypse. Natasha. Same for us here. Our 18-year-old daughter is also leading the way for her generation and does not drink or tolerate the behavior in friends. So beautiful. It's challenging out there for any of our children. You know, it's challenging for me to understand. I have 3 children in Babylon. I've had to really forgive myself for that, you know, and it's not easy to be here far away while they're there, understanding the attempts of devouring that are taking place. And I also feel like from a cosmic level, just like I know I chose my parents, that my children chose me, and that one day we'll all remember why we've had to go through, at least in my material and physical situation, this separation from my children, to really go into these depths, to really kind of peel back the layers of what's really going on, and to kind of fortify ourselves into like, what do we do about this? There is not a justice team out there. The government is full of pedophiles. The churches are full of them. The schools are full of them. This whole world has been based on secret societies and blood oaths and what are called global elites. And so we are the ones. We are the actual ones. The righteous, the ones that lead with integrity, right? Today we're in the Skywalker, which is about the empowerment and the command. And so step by step, we rise into the Justice League that we are by living with that righteousness, that truth, that integrity, and by starting to speak of it. And I can recognize there's so much external chatter out there that tries to talk people into, if you say something, you'll be banned. If you say something, you'll be killed. If you say something, blah, blah, blah. All of this is the fake shit that keeps you from remembering you are the truth. You are the authority. You are invincible. And so that's why I don't edit or audit myself. There's no hiding. It's full on mother dragons coming out. You know, because we're crowned with the stars. These are the wisdoms. These are the wisdoms of the heavens. With the moon under her feet. So she's like she's ascended above this earth material plane, but she can still interact with it. But the more you look at that imagery, you can kind of feel it. You can feel the returning to heaven, the ascent to heaven that's taking place. The other image that was in that church was Archangel Michael. He actually looked, well, like an angel, right? And an angel is a little more androgynous, I might say. You know, he wasn't naked. I didn't see all of his parts or whatever, but you could feel the masculine and the feminine. You could feel like a little more of an androgynous nature. And he's carrying a sword and the balanced scales of justice. And yeah, it's a beautiful image. I wish I had a picture of it to share with you all, but it was just beautiful to share. There's so much more about that church that I didn't finish telling you about, including this octagon structure that feels like another place in time, like it's connected to Glastonbury or something like that. It's an octagon shape made of this special type of stone that you don't see anywhere else. Let's see, Natasha, I've had to come to terms with that piece. Our children are on their own journey. We can guide simply by energy and doing our own work. Jayla has her own path. Even though she's doing such amazing work, we still would have her do it differently. Releasing that and just trusting the divine plan has been so liberating for each of us. She sees her path and has us here when she needs us. You know, that's exactly what you can do, right? Somehow my family and I decided that I would even be like a mother from afar. And I knew that the greatest gift that I could give, if I wasn't in their physical presence, you know, signing their paperwork to go to school, which I wouldn't even agree to send them to school, just to be honest. Like, I would not agree to send my kids to any school structure. Like, I have had to let go of my authority in that way. I want to control it. I want to say, get them the fuck out of there. That was my whole point in taking them to Costa Rica in 2018 in the first place. I didn't realize how tuned in my psychic abilities were back then, and really all of my life. But I realized, okay, they're on their journey. They're still meant to go into a school system. They're still meant to play sports. They're still meant to do dance and all of the things. And like, I had to be okay with their earth school and my earth school. And that I knew that the greatest gift that I could give my children was holding a calm, healed, ecstatic, whole energy field of a mother from afar. And you can't really explain or justify that to the average human on this earth plane. I know. I had to move beyond the idea of justifying my acts. And I have had to receive the crucifixion of the judgment, you know, of many for the choices that I've made. And I've had to, and the only thing that's kept me going is the vision and the knowing, the gnosis of what I'm really doing and why I'm doing it. And what many of us have had to go through to kind of leave something behind to create something and to remember an embodiment of something far beyond, I mean, my and my children to all children. Because I didn't expect that I'd be led on a path to dig so deeply into the idea of protecting children on all levels. Physical, with vaccines, poisons, mental and emotional. And so as we start to become more aware of what's really going on here, and we bring this information through, right, we become more aware of, well, the importance of the healing of the mother and the father for the sake of our children, because they are us and our genetics are in them. And it's much more energetic than we understand. It's much more deep than just teaching something or telling them to do something. You know, and I see my daughter growing up so fast, and I'm like, all I can do is love her and accept her for where she is, and to see her as a galactic guardian that's having a lot of fun in a 15-year-old's body, figuring it out. And that she knows she has a mother that she can call and confide in at any given moment in time, that's not here to judge her, that's here to remain open to her growth, and to believe so deeply that they can't fuck it up. You know, that oftentimes our children have a more advanced soul than we have. But God, we've been so indoctrinated, we've been so domesticated that the domestication ends with us. You know, and that's how we build a new future. So I'm going to catch up on some of these. I missed some of your messages here. Aurora, we come encoded as children. I left home when I was 14. What a journey it was, and I turned out exceptionally great. I'm excited to know all of your children are here among us, warriors of the light. Aw, thank you for that. Yeah, I have a deep trust in that. And, I got a message from their father today, and he doesn't talk to me too often anymore. This is where I get a little emotional. Because he's been upset at me. He's been angry at me. He can't understand why I left. He doesn't know who I am anymore. He has a hard time believing I love and care for my children. And so it was beautiful for him to reach out to me today and to share that with me. And he was my best friend, really in all the ways. I was never planning to leave him. This whole thing has been quite a shock for me. Quite a reckoning. Quite a renegotiation of contracts, so to speak. Quite an initiation into trusting a mission that may not be able to be interpreted or explained in words. It may or may not be able to be understood by everyone. You can't always determine if someone else forgives you or not. Especially when your intent was never to hurt anyone. You can only control, actually that topic's been coming up a lot about forgiveness. Forgiveness is like a knot in the stomach, it's like a kink in the hose that keeps the life force energy from flowing smoothly. When I started to come into the idea of forgiveness from a higher perspective, it only made sense to me that there would be no one I need to forgive in my life. It would only be a burden for me to keep anything within myself that would feel like a self-inflicted wound, a self-poisoning, to hold on to that, to know that whether I forgave someone or not within myself really had nothing to do with anyone in the outer planes. I first learned this concept from Dr. Wayne Dyer. When I heard him say there are no justified resentments. As soon as I heard that there are no justified resentments, I was like, okay, am I holding on to anything? Am I resentful towards anyone? This was probably about 10 years ago. And I went through the list. There were a few people. And how do you know if you haven't forgiven someone? You can feel like energy in your body, right? You're like, oh, that bitch, or whatever it is, like whatever it is, if it's pending, you're giving your energy away. You might not even realize it till you get really honest with yourself and ask the question. And so I'm sharing all of this because, look, if you want to hold on to shit for the rest of your life, go right a fucking head. You won't ascend though. You're still in reactor mode instead of creator mode. If you truly want to free yourself, you'll do this work. And it doesn't have to take long. At any given moment in time, you can decide that you want to be free. And that's what forgiveness actually is. Because to harbor anything, to hold on to anything that turns your stomach or brings poisonous chemicals within your structure, that has nothing to do with anyone else but you. You have full control over the decision to rewrite any code and to rebirth yourself and to turn on the higher mission that you came here for at any given moment in time. You know, I remember when I had heard that idea that there are no justified resentments. It's like right after I had come into that concept, this girl had come to my house. It was right before I came to Costa Rica. This was 2018. And she told me that she was like basically gangbanged by the high school football team at her school. Like she went to a party and this thing had happened, and that was like, whoa, a super shock for me and super hard to hear. And you make yourself sick if you hold on to resentment. Exactly. It's a poison. It's your own prison. You know, so I had to tell my sister in that moment that she told me this god-awful experience that happened to her. And I was like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And then I said, you know, this is what makes it challenging when I hear someone like Dr. Wayne Dyer say, there are no justified resentments. I'm like, are you able to release yourself from this pain? Are you able to release yourself from this turmoil? Are you able to free yourself from this constriction, this resentment? That happened to your friend in the 70s. You know, I swear after I died, it was like I was calling the angels home. It was like I couldn't believe how many people were coming to me and telling me the fucked up shit they've gone through in their lives. Usually with sexual trauma. It's so sad. I was absolutely clueless, honestly. I really had to come into another level of understanding human suffering. And until I was aware of this, you know, because besides that, like you hear of things like in the news and even the idea of like sexual trauma to a child and stuff, it seems so far away and like it's happened a few times kind of thing. Until all of a sudden you realize these people are coming to you and you're like, oh my God, there's almost no one that has not been abused in their life at an early innocent child's age. And then it's like, I just started asking the question, like, what on earth makes someone do something like that? Why on earth, how on earth would an adult do something to a child? And I was shown with my honest heart seeking and asking that every offender was once offended. And somehow, now that does not justify any behavior, but somehow it started to open up the gates of a chain of command, of this black web, of this black goo, of this tricky little nasty virus of fracturing the souls of innocent children that's taken place on this planet, of this beast that's been operating through many, usually through alcohol, through church, through drugs. There's been so many ways that has happened, through poverty. But this dark beast, you know, that has compromised the innocence of many children. And so I think more and more people are becoming aware of this, and there's like this level of like protection, and then it's like, oh, but the beast is a robot now. It's a robot dragon. It's not even a human. The predators are in the phones. They're reaching the innocence of our children right now. They're in the church. They're in the schools. They're exposing and sexualizing our children at young ages. Like there isn't anywhere that it isn't. There is a war. There is a spiritual battle being played out. And I know the light wins. I'm very confident in that. And my part and my role in that is starting to unravel and be transparent about these topics and conversations, and to invite each one of us as leaders, as pioneers, as revolutionaries here in service to humanity, to come into the divine plan that we've been called into with each of our roles and gifts. Some are a little more front lines as messengers. Some are a little more back lines as transmuters of energy. Some are in the prayer. Some are working with the grid. Some are working with the water. Some are working with the crystals. We're always working in the very now moment that we come into contact with anything or anyone that is not in integrity or alignment, that we come correct with purity. And that is how the light wins, because we always choose the light over the darkness. And as the light shines brighter, right, as the lighthouses start to shine, the other ones find their way back home. And there are many fallen angels here. There are many fallen angels who have fallen very far. The mother's love does not discriminate. Anyone is invited to return through the pearly gates of heaven. I've sat with some that have done some things that aren't so okay. And they've lived with their own punishments and their own demons, and they've been ready to return. Again, the mother's love does not discriminate. And she invites all her children to return home. That can't be atoned. There isn't anything that can't be turned away from, that can't be purified, that can't be brought to the light. And there is a sense, it's crazy. I have this like this pulsing in my left foot right now that's just like tick, 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 tick. Like this vibration, this full throttle. So wild. Yeah, purification. Fathers, brothers, uncles, and cousins in the homes. Yeah, I can't catch up on all of the texts, so sometimes I miss some of you all. It's to fragment the mind. It's the ultimate MK Ultra on humanity. Yeah, I've learned a lot about this. It's soul fracture. The fathers, brothers, and uncles and cousins. It's big time. And listen, it ain't just men. It is not just boys. And that's the crazy part. I've had women admit some shit that they've done when they were the babysitter. You know, it's like and you know what else? I've had women tell me that they came and they told their mothers about their boyfriends doing something, or their brothers, or their dads, or whatever. And the mother just covering it up. You know, the mother just covering it up and looking the other way and saying, we don't talk about that. And, you know, this isn't something we can bring to light. I know of many people in the Mormon church. They have an image to uphold, and they cannot ruin that image. Their ego. You know, who wants to admit, you know, when a child finally speaks up and she comes out, or he comes out of the closet, and see, this is the challenge too. There's been so much male on male that's been like, there's just a little more of a taboo about that. And so this is the real unraveling and unfolding, is the male on male stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, because there is a different level of shame to that. And there are a lot that haven't been able to come out about that. And it usually then impacts the sexual desire with gender, addictions to pornography. Like, I can see how it all works. I can see the whole structure very clearly. So when a fracturing of the soul happens, you could imagine that it's almost like a demon was imparted on the child at the fracturing of the soul. And so the child still has their innocent children's soul, but then they also have this other aspect of them that may come out to play, so to speak. And it is the aspect of them that starts to do the same things that were done to them, that starts to hate themselves, that starts to be addicted to certain patterns, that starts killing animals, that starts watching pornography, like fill in the blanks. Yeah, lots of female groomers, enablers, excuse makers. This is what I've learned that's been the most shock of the shock, is like, I, in my mind, always put the darkness on the man. Now, I've never been a feminist. I've never been a bitter female. I've never understood that thing. But I was clueless to the idea that the feminine had her dark little games. I was so clueless. And it's like, and it's tricky. That's how they actually hide and play. Because, see, you think because someone's a woman or they look like a nice old lady, even, that they're like nice. You don't fucking know, especially if they got a fractured soul. You know, especially if messed up stuff happened to them, they just keep doing it. So again, it's on all sides. You start to talk about this and you bring it to light. This is the revealing of the layers. This is the revealing of the truth. This is the stuff that's not always easy to talk about, but can't be looked away from. And then you start to put some pieces together, you know? And yeah, unfortunately, we all grew up in worlds where you want to pretend like everything's perfect. And, you know, when people got hard shit going on in the family. And even when the truth does come out, it's like, well, you can't talk about Uncle Billy like that. We still got to go to Christmas. We still got to go to Thanksgiving, you know, and then children having stomach aches, nightmares, peeing in their bed. Those are all signs, by the way. Children with nightmares, children peeing in their bed or soiling themselves, children with stomach aches and pains. And see, this is where the parents and the mothers have to wake up to this. And you don't just start treating this with medical. Like, I've met people who's like, their children have unexplainable stomach problems, pains, and they've tried every doctor's everything and all the energy healing and all of the supplements. It's like, oh, is she being raped by her father? I know this isn't always easy to digest, but these are the things that need to be digested. Our children need us to talk about this, you know? Yeah, we're not here to protect Uncle Billy, because when Uncle Billy is not exposed, Uncle Billy keeps playing with his willy. These dudes never stop. You know, everyone talks about murder and stuff like that. Well, this is the thing that people get away with. And it's so, so sad, these innocent children. You know, one time my friend did an Akashic, she and I were working in a medicine field, and Eduardo came to visit us and see what was going on. And the next thing you know, she was receiving these visions about Eduardo. And she had seen that Eduardo was kind of like it was quite surprising for her to bring this type of context in, because I wouldn't have expected her to bring this this level of reference. She was sensing that Eduardo had come from another planet that was destroyed, connected to the dragons. She saw that Eduardo was in a robe. He was in a temple of gold. He was surrounded by many masters and dragons. He had access to all of them for health. She was shown that there was this dark dungeon that was full of children, and that he was here to liberate the children and to purify and free these children that had been locked in these cages. I see this on many levels. I understand we came here for this planetary mission and we're not fucking around about it. And we're just getting started. And one of the first truths that has to come out about all of this is that the very ones that everybody thinks are taking care of it are the ones covering it up. Anyone running around protecting Trump right now, I can't even believe we're still falling for that game. All of these spaces and places that are pretending like I'll see these white hat reports and it's like, white hat report, 60 children found and rescued, thanks to Donald Trump. And I'm like, what? He's in all the pictures with Epstein. Like, this is fake news. We're just getting started on this topic, actually. Because the ones pretending like they're saving all the kids are actually the ones that have been covering up that they've been doing it. Nobody gets to the presidential position in a United States government by accident, nor in any top secret military position. There are oaths, there are agreements, there are sacrifices, there are jabs and stabs, there are initiations, there are top secret programs and projects that have been done. There's mass mind control. There are drugs that have ran through all these government and church structures. They're not the ones. The foster care systems aren't taking care of the children. They're running the programs. This is the truth. Who is the Justice League? I'm asking the questions. I appoint myself to the position of the Justice League. And I invite the others that feel called to ask, how do we and proceed? This is just the beginning of the processing, the digesting of the planetary karma, of the confrontation, of the battle of the light and dark, of addressing something that's not so easy to look at, but has continually been looked away from, which is why it's gotten so big. Because prayer isn't the answer. We are the living prayer. We are the embodiment. We are the ones. We are the mothers. We are the fathers. We are the dragons. We are the guardians. We are the protectors. We are the truth. And so we're not here to protect anyone in their particular positions or histories. Not a president, not President Trump, not President Eisenhower, not any of them. Not NASA, not any government. We are the ones. So I don't know where and how it goes from here. I know that we're just getting started. And we don't take it lightly as guardians of a planet, that we're here to end this thing for good. And one of the big steps of that is recognizing that we're not just deferring it and hoping that, the dudes with the fake hair on the cameras signing documents with $6 billion agreements with Michael Dell, the Jewish tech billionaire. I worked for that dude for 9 years in Austin, Texas. That's the deal that was just made with Donald Trump and Michael Dell, who is a tech billionaire and owns 2 children's hospitals, one of them called Ascension Hospital. So strange. No, the guardian angels are here. We're kind of coming in. We're waking up. We're seeing this agenda. These dudes aren't saving the day over there. They're covering it up. Their time is up. Nobody becomes a millionaire or a billionaire by accident. Let me meet the pure ones. I invite any millionaire or billionaire to come to me and share with me how they've acquired all of their riches. So we take it day by day, and we control the controllables, which is you got to stay at peace. You got to find peace within yourself. You know, we cannot be raggled and scraggled out. We've got to clean up our own holes. We got to clean up our own weaknesses. We've got to come into the wholeness so that we can wear the breastplate of righteousness, because the system will prey on our weakness. And they will play on our emotional immaturity. But Gene Key 22, grace through suffering. Gene Key 33, final revelation. Gene Key 55, freedom. You know, and I always connected to that movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was supposedly about exposing child trafficking. But I'm like, it looks a whole lot different than we might think. It's been going on through the generations and the elite families forever. There's a whole lot more cloning and experimenting going on than people have any idea. It's not just one kid that was kidnapped that's missing. There are many that were born into these societies that have never been documented, and people don't know they exist. There are many women that have been impregnated and their children taken from them. Pretty much every indigenous tribe has been used as a breeding program to impregnate and take children. All of these church, what do you call those things? Church, when you go to the church, Lutheran missionaries, the Mormon missions, and the German missions. You know, I see the German missionary Lutheran church going to Australia and supposedly like, you know, it's like, oh, we'll take your kid from poverty and we'll raise it in our family. I'm like, uh-huh. That's what's going on. All of a sudden, I have my eyes raised to any adoption or fostering that's going on. Who are the mother and who are the father? Is this really about saving a child, or is there something a little more questionable going on in the background? I can't not ask this question. And I'm sorry I missed all of y'all's good comments over here. Our children need to be nurtured, loved, and protected. Absolutely. Each and every one that we see, each and every one that we come into contact with. You know, I don't interact with so many humans these days, and I miss that. But when I do, especially with a child, it's quite crazy. I can tell when a child's soul's been fractured. They oftentimes won't be able to communicate with me. They'll feel very shy. They'll feel very quiet. They may or may not be able to look me in the eyes. These are all great signs. No child is born shy. You know, and then I have others that literally, it's like as soon as they come into my auric field, they're talking about dragons. And I didn't say a thing. You know, it's like, wow, you can see. And I will say there are very expressive ones that have big imaginations that have also had a fracture of their soul, right? Because I've had people that grew up in satanic ritual cults, in churches, tell me their stories. And they say, you know, you leave your body, you fly, you go somewhere else while these things are happening, and then you return, right? These are the fractures. More people than you know have been a victim of these types of things, and they've never been talked about. And so pretty much anyone in a leadership, government, or big money position was likely initiated through these types of things and has never told anybody about it. So the truth shall set us free. We're bringing it all to light. One story at a time. One heart willing to be of service at a time. You know, this is the invitation of the communion, of the synergy, of everyone coming together with their gifts, their knowledge, their skills to serve a plan far greater than themselves, to serve all of humanity, to serve this planet, to serve the children, to serve the future. We all have a different role in that. And the first part is that we've got to learn to be stable in the midst of all storms. A lot of my other videos have talked about this with our emotional body and the toroidal field and the 0 point, so that this is warrior of light, to be able to hold the field in the midst of all darkness, to be able to be the pillar of light in the midst of all darkness, to be able to hold the calm and the peace no matter what. And that does not mean that you don't come with a force and an authority and a truth and a reckoning if and when called to do so. But in the gene keys in the 38 at the warrior of light, it says the warrior of light does not react out of spite or anger or emotion. They are very centered into their mission. It even says that the warrior may even have to kill to protect, but they would never do it out of a reaction. So we have to come into that whole healed state in order to resurrect this next level of the mission. And I could probably go on forever and ever, but I think 2 hours is pretty good. It's been great to spend some time with you all. Much love. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for purifying. We're opening up those gates, always available for calls and sessions. Calling in anyone that's feeling the call to come to the Costa Rica grids and work together in that way, serve together in that way, coming into the council meetings. And I'm actually going to sing a song, a little transmission that came to me after I was studying and contemplating the woman of the apocalypse. So again, the woman of the apocalypse, she's crowned with the stars, with the moon under her feet. Jacqueline, I always had a safe place for all my children's friends in my home. I treated them all as they were my children, and they all loved. Aw, it's so beautiful to have a space like that, you know? Love you, Danica. Always good to see you, my White Rose sister. All right, so here's the song that I always come up with these little ditties and transmissions. This one's called A Blanket of Stars Will Protect You from Mars. And Mars for me is military auxiliary radio signals, right? It's energy weapons, it's frequency fences that are connected to the military and the negative alien agenda programs that are already here and have been operating on our planet for a very long time. So we're not running around looking for gray aliens. We're not running around looking for some other kind of species. We're multidimensional. This whole world is ET. This whole planet is ET. So then you start to see, like, what are the alien technologies that are running in the field? Okay, so the song, though, anyways, is talking about the blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. And so I call it that cosmic wisdom. And the day that I received this song, I was recording a video of it on my YouTube at the time. And literally, and I was recording the altar I had at the time, which was super beautiful. I want to find the video and share it with you all. It's on my old YouTube account called Quantum Phinix 144. I can't get into that account anymore. But anyways, I recorded that song, A Blanket of Stars Will Protect You from Mars. And then all of a sudden, all of the power went out. All of the electricity went out. I always pay attention when shit like that happens, you know? Sometimes you say or do something. Like one time I was on the phone with my friend Aurora. She's in Mexico. I don't remember exactly what we were dropping in, but like all of a sudden it started hailing in Mexico. And I'm like, okay, maybe it hails over there all the time, but I don't really think so. And that's why I called it the Hail Mary. Because after that, Tupac Hail Mary was in my YouTube, but whatever. But anyways, in this moment where I'd sang this song, A Blanket of Stars Will Protect You from Mars, all of the power went out. I was living next door to this dude who felt a little bit like a Martian, just to be honest. I don't know another way to describe it. I definitely had some questions about his behavior with his child. I don't think I understood enough then to put it together. I'm literally putting it together as I'm saying it right here, right now. It's okay to have suspicions. It's okay to trust your intuition. It's okay to say to someone, hey, I could be wrong about something, but I have a sense that there might be something incorrect going on with the behavior of that man and that child. I don't want to be right about this, but I'm having a sense of something. It's okay to be wrong, but I want to share. You know, like I'm literally talking through this as I'm speaking with you all about it, because who speaks for the child that doesn't speak? You know, and I'm now feeling my role and my responsibility as I'm saying this right now to you, that if I ever see or feel or sense a child that seems as though something fractured their soul, that I have a responsibility as a guardian and a messenger to say to their mother, father, or caregiver, hey, something feels a little off. That's not easy. And that is a level of guardianship and leadership and warrior of lightship that I'm calling myself into, and inviting any and all of you that if you're ever put in a position to just ask the question. So here's the song. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. A blanket of stars will protect you from Mars. Oof. I'm just literally having all these faces of all these people and these organizations, and like even connected to the house where I recorded that and the power went out, and the many people that have lived there or around there, and the questions that I have about the purity of those people. And when I talk about Mars, military auxiliary radio signal, right? And then we also think of the people that have code word affiliations connected to Mars. So you think of like Martians, almost like an alien invasion. The blanket of stars are like the celestial purification. That's what I'm calling it, the blanket of stars. And I literally brought this song because I had this blanket with the astrology on it. And I was thinking of the blanket of stars, like the celestial protection from the Martian invasion. Ooh, I just have so much coming in. I don't even know how to what to, when to. So I'll leave you all with that. I'm going to go find that video and I'm going to share it for anybody who wants to see it. I love sharing this with you tonight. Lovely. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here. Thanks always for your beautiful, sweetheart, Jacqueline, and your support. Yeah, much love to all of you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Let's come together. How do we serve together? Always calling in the tribe, always calling in the family, always calling in the resources, always calling in the team, always calling in the councils to be of service. Much love, my brothers and sisters. Until the next time. 209. Oh my God, that guy I was telling you about is this kin, 209. And we're in the wave of the 209. Magnetic moon. So we're in the purification. Oof. Anyways, here we are purifying. Much love. Everyone have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you on Monday in 3 days. And thank you, Marcus. And I know Marcus is maybe driving, so eventually he's going to end this live. I wish I can see all of your comments here, but I think if I just hang up, it'll be fine. But just in case you're there, Marcus, I wish I knew how to play that video for you guys through here, but I don't know how to do it. So I think I'm just going to hang up and see how this goes. Eventually, Marcus, I know, is driving. He might not be able to close this down, but he will in a moment. So I'll see y'all in the next perfect moment. Enjoy your weekend.